Hello, guys. Welcome in. It's Brad with College SportsCast, and I am here today to do your Week 8 College SportsCast weekend wrap-up show.
We executed.
I heard a fan offer free Dippin' Dots if I blew it.
Wanted to have some fun, execute.
I had bombs.
Stay as a team, execute, give 100%.
Dippin' Dots sound good.
All right, guys. Welcome back. Welcome into College SportsCast. I am Brad. I'm here to do our Week 8 weekend wrap-up show. I hope you guys can hear me. I'm on today by myself. John Roberts was busy this afternoon. He said he'll be on Tuesday. John Hammonds is probably got a funeral on Tuesday night, so he will not be with me. But John Roberts will for the Week 9 Big Fuss show, so looking forward to that. This is College SportsCast. Welcome in. We're presented by the Fanboys, and we're featured on Let's Talk Sports, Sideline Sports, the Real Fresh channel on Sundays. Today, show will be, and we are also on WSBN TV Channel 30, World Sports Broadcasting Network. You can find us on your Apple TV, Roku, or Fire TV by downloading the BoxCast app. And once you download the BoxCast app, look for World Sports Broadcasting Network. Once you find them, you can find us, College SportsCast, on Channel 30. All right, man. So this past week, we had Week 8 of college football. There wasn't a ton of great games. There was a few really good games. And then, so we'll start out. I'll start out talking about some of the best games of the week. So I'll get that up on the screen for you guys, some of the best games of the week. Ohio State and Penn State was one of the best games of the week. It was a defensive battle. Wasn't a whole lot of offense in this one. Penn State had a scoop and scored 12 points. Ohio State, outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., who had a really good day, 162 yards and a touchdown in receiving. Marvin Harrison Jr., who is excellent and one of the best players in college football. Penn State had 12. Ohio State got 20 at home. Won at the shoe, 20-12. So that was one of the best games of the week. And from there, you had Alabama and Tennessee. This was a tale of two halves. Tennessee jumped out 13-0. Looked like they were going to control the game, to be quite honest with you. And went in at halftime with a 20-7 lead in Tuscaloosa, by the way. And looked like Tennessee was going to have their way with Alabama. And then the second half starts. And they scored 27 unanswered points in the second half. I'm trying to check my sound. Yeah, they scored 27 unanswered points in the second half and beat Tennessee 34-20 after they were up 20-7 at halftime. So they literally scored a goose egg, 0 in the second half. And Alabama wins at home, coming from behind to win 34-20. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to check my sound. I can't tell if you guys can hear me. According to my side, my mic's going, but I'm trying to check it. Anyways, so we had that game. We had a really good game last night. I don't know if you guys were watching, but Duke and Florida State was a great game last night through 3 quarters. At the very end of the third, or the very first to the fourth, Riley Leonard, who had been hurt anyway with a high ankle sprain and was trying to get it out, re-injured that ankle and did not come back in. When he re-injured the ankle, they were ahead 20-17. And at that point in time, they led the entire game. At that point in time, they were in the midst of a drive, and the backup come in and finished the drive down to about the 3 or 4 yard line, and it was 4th down, and Mike Elko decides to go for it. And I don't know why he decided to go for it, but he literally decided to go for it on 4th down at the 3 or 4 yard line instead of kicking a field goal. Would have been ahead by 6. I don't know if it would have made a difference because the last part of the game, I mean, Florida State scored 21 points in the 4th quarter after Leonard went down. So I can't guarantee you that it would have made a big difference, but it was definitely something that that was a bad decision, if you ask me. I mean, you're on the road. You're trying to beat Florida State for the very first time ever. Duke has never beaten Florida State. And you're at their house. It's the 4th quarter. You have a chance to go up 6 points. You take the points. I don't really understand that call. After that, they give up a 97-yard drive, and the rest is history. They kicked their butts. Like I said, they scored 21 points in the 4th quarter and kicked their butts in the 4th quarter after Riley Leonard went down. And Florida State survives, even though they were down just besides the 4th quarter, the entire game. And then late last night, you had USC and Utah. It was at USC, and Utah had a 2-score lead. They had a turnover late, and USC went ahead 32-31 with like a minute and 20 seconds to go, something like that. Minute 30 seconds to go. And Utah marches down, kicks a field goal, kicks a 38-yard field goal, I think, to beat them 34-32. Utah is playing without Cam Rising. By the way, they announced today that Cam Rising is going to be shut down for the year, along with their good tight end is also going to be shut down. They've been playing without 2 key players all year and still have a shot at the Pac-12 title right now. Pretty much knocking USC out. There are 5 teams with 0 or 1 losses in the Pac-12. I was trying to think. No, so USC's other loss is to to Notre Dame. So they still have 1 loss in the Pac-12. So they still have a shot. But there are 5 teams. You have Washington, Oregon, USC, Utah, and Oregon State that are still in the running. And if you ask me, I think those were the four best games of the day yesterday. Yeah, I think those are the four best games. Sorry, again, I'm trying to check my sound. I think I'm still good. All right. From there, guys, I'm going to go to the college football scoreboard. And this is going to be a rundown of the entire week 8. It started on Tuesday. We had Liberty beat MTSU 42-35. Liberty is still undefeated. I think they're 7-0. Jacksonville State won at home 20-17 over Western Kentucky, and South Alabama 55, Southern Miss 3. Then Wednesday last week, we had FIU 33, Sam Houston 27, New Mexico State 28, and UTEP 7. On Thursday, we had Rice beat Tulsa 42-10. James Madison beat Marshall 20-9. On Friday, SMU 55, Temple 0, and then Saturday, the very first game was the Penn State Ohio State game, which was won by Ohio State 20-12. Oklahoma had a scare against UCF this week, and come back right at the end. Really, it was at home. They were coming off of a bye week, coming off of beating Texas, so. I think they had a little bit of a slip up here, mental slip up in this game. Plumlee was back for UCF, and he played well and guided them really well throughout the day. Oklahoma won 31-29. Air Force, their quarterback did play. He did start. They beat Navy 17-6. They are 7-0 and still undefeated. And then we got Mississippi State and Arkansas, 7-3, and that's a final score here, guys. Mississippi State played without Will Rogers. They started Mike White, the old Vanderbilt quarterback, by the way. And Arkansas, I don't even know what you can say about Arkansas at this point. They've lost 6 in a row. And their offense is next to nothing. And they got KJ Jefferson, and Rocket Sanders has been hurt. And then you got some good wide receivers they brought in, and they are doing next to nothing. And by the way, just right before I come on air today, 45 minutes, Arkansas announced they have fired offensive coordinator Enos. And it's not a shocking move at this point. I mean, Sam Pittman's in trouble, I think, here, and he's trying to save his job, I believe, and try to make a change here and see if he can get something going the last, 4 games of the season, because that's what they have. They're 2-6. So, I'm not sure how that's going to go, but that's what he's attempting to do here. Rutgers beat Indiana 31-14. Boston College 38, Georgia Tech 23. Baylor beat Cincinnati at Cincinnati 32-29. Cincinnati, after a good start, couple of weeks, has had a rough go in the Big 12. Memphis 45, UAB 21, Ohio 20, Western Michigan 17. Charlotte beat East Carolina 10-7. Georgia Southern beat UL Monroe 38-28. Bowling Green beat Akron 41-14. Oregon beat Washington State 38-24. In Eugene, Alabama 34, Tennessee 20. Missouri in Columbia beat South Carolina 34-12. Tulane beat North Texas 35-28. Iowa really bad call at the end of this game. There was a punt return for a touchdown that was called back because of what they called an illegal fair catch call. He was not fair catching it. He was using his arms and waving his blockers to block, and he picks up the ball and he takes off and runs and scores a touchdown. And they call this thing back because they say that his arm was up waving for a fair catch. But here's the deal, guys. I always thought the rule was if you're calling for a fair catch, that your arm had to be above your head. I thought you had to raise your arm up above your head to like wave up. Okay? That's not what this kid was doing. This kid was doing this and trying to wave his blockers. And he picks up the ball, takes off, punt return for a touchdown, gets called back. Iowa gets beat at home by Minnesota 12-10. Bad loss. Wisconsin beat Illinois 25-21. Nebraska beat Northwestern 17-9. South Florida beat UConn 24-21. Oklahoma State beat West Virginia at West Virginia 48-34. Oklahoma State is playing better. Ball State 24, Central Michigan 17. Northern Illinois 20, Eastern Michigan 13. Buffalo beat Kent State 24-6. Texas had a little bit of a hangover after the Oklahoma game. They also had a bye. This is their first time playing. It was a tie ball game with like a minute and something to go. Texas wins in Houston 34-21. Toledo beat Miami of Ohio 21-17. UTSA beat Florida Atlantic 36-10. New Mexico beat Hawaii 42-21. Virginia gets their very first win against an FBS opponent, a Division I school, this year against a top 10 North Carolina team. North Carolina was ranked 10th this week, and they got beat at home 31-27. Virginia's not, this is their very first win over an FBS school this year. BYU beat Texas Tech 27-14. Kansas State demolished TCU 41-3 at home. Old Dominion beat Appalachian State 28-21. Coastal Carolina beat Arkansas State 27-17. UNLV, who is 6-1, beat Colorado State 25-23. Barry Odom is there, first season, by the way. Great coach. I told everybody he was going to go there. He actually hired Bobby Petrino to be his OC, and he stayed there for like 6 weeks and then jumped ship and went to Texas A&M. But in the middle of the season, off season, and never done anything at UNLV. But Barry Odom's still getting the job done. They're 6-1 in the Mountain West. San Jose State beat Utah State 42-21. Michigan demolished Michigan State 49-0 at Michigan State. Michigan State's in shambles. Florida State beat Duke 38-20. LSU killed Army 62-0. Utah beat USC at USC 34-32. Miami beat Clemson. It was in Miami. That's their very first home ACC win under Cristobal, by the way. And they beat them 28-20 in a double overtime. Georgia State beat Louisiana 20-17. Nevada blanks San Diego State 6-0 in a score. And UCLA in Stanford beats Stanford 42-7. If you guys remember last week, Colorado let Stanford score 46 points. They got 7 at home against UCLA this week. Washington struggled last night as well after the Oregon win last week, but still come away with the win at home 15-7. And that is your Week 8 college football scoreboard rundown. All right, guys. Let's take a look at the Week 9 AP poll that come out a couple of hours ago, hour and a half ago. So Georgia remains number 1, but they are losing some votes. Michigan is getting closer and closer, even though Michigan has one of the worst schedules in all of college football and really has yet to play anybody worth a damn. And I'm just being honest. Michigan State yesterday, yes, it's a rivalry game. Yes, they're usually decent. Yet, no, they're not this year. They're in shambles. They are closing the gap. But Georgia remains the number 1 team for the 19th straight week, by the way. That is the 3rd longest streak of ever for a team to remain number 1 in college football. Only 2 streaks are longer. That is USC's streak from 2003 to 2005 in the Reggie Bush years. And that is also Miami's streak from 2001 and 2002. They did it 21 weeks. Right now, Georgia's at 19. Alabama slides back into the top 10. And I'll give you the rundown here. So we got Georgia, Michigan, number 2. Ohio State remains number 3. Florida State remains number 4. Washington and Oklahoma are 5 and 6, and they also stay the same. Texas moves up a spot to 7. Oregon moves up a spot to 8. Alabama moves up 2 spots to 9. Penn State falls to 10, which I think is a 3 spot drop after the Ohio State loss. Oregon State is 11. Ole Miss is 12. Utah is 13. Notre Dame is 14. LSU is 15. And Missouri is 16. Then you got North Carolina off the really bad loss at home to Virginia that fell 7 spots to 17. Louisville is 18 this week. I'm not exactly sure where they fall. I think that's up a few spots because they had fallen. They were at 14 and they had fallen after the Pitt loss last week. But they are up to 18. Air Force is number 19. Duke is 20. After their loss, they fell a little bit. Tennessee fell 4 spots to 21. Then you have Tulane in the poll at 22. UCLA is 23. USC drops to 24. They had dropped. I can't remember where they were last week because they got beat by Notre Dame. But they've dropped to 20. James Madison comes in the poll at 25 this week. They're only in their 2nd year of the FBS. They are not eligible for a bowl. They have to go 2 years before they are eligible. But they are a Sun Belt team, and they are 7-0, maybe 8-0, 7-0, I think. And a really, really good team. Had a great team last year. They got ranked one time early in October, and then they lost 3 games. So we'll see if they can stay in the poll this week or this year. They are now ranked at 25. So a little bit of rundown. I told you about Georgia's 19-week streak at number 1. Iowa drops out. James Madison moves in. Air Force Tulane and James Madison are all non-Power 5 teams that are in the poll. SEC has 6, Pac-12 has 6, ACC 4, Big 10 only has 3, Big 12 only has 2, Mountain West has 1, American has 1, Sun Belt has 1, and Independent is 1 with Notre Dame. And Air Force, that is the highest that Air Force has been ranked since 2001. Trying to remember where I seen that at. Yeah, I think it's the highest Air Force has been ranked since 2001. They're ranked 19th. I think they were 18th that year, from what I've seen. Pretty sure that's what I've seen. So there is a rundown of the brand new Week 9 AP Top 25. We'll give you guys a little bit of college football landscape talk here. So, the Power 6 right now, guys, is going to be the same from last week. I mean, you've got your top 6 basically that's in the AP poll. You got Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Washington, and Oregon. I mean, Washington and Oklahoma. I had to think what I was trying to say there for a minute. Washington and Oklahoma. That's your top 6, and right now I would probably put those top 6 in that order. They are all still undefeated teams. Of course, Michigan and Ohio State play each other last game of the regular season, so one of those will be knocked out of the unbeatens for sure. And we will see what happens with the remaining teams, but those are the Power 6 I'm going to call. All right. And then you've got, I'm going to list another group of teams here that I think still have a shot at this. Texas, of course, is going to top that list. I think Oregon is going to be very high on that list as well, and Alabama is going to be very high on that list. Penn State is going to be pretty high on that list. So those 4 are probably would be my next 4 that I am going to mention. So that would be a top 10. And then I'm going to give you some other teams that still have an outside shot at this. Oregon State, Utah, to be honest with you, is setting where they still have a shot at this. Now, I think Utah is a little bit longer shot because they're playing backups and still having a great year. But Oregon State, Utah, Ole Miss still has an outside shot. Missouri has a shot at this. They still, in 2 weeks, they have a bye week this coming week. In 2 weeks, they will be coming back to play Georgia. The first week in November, it's going to be a huge game. And, they're 7-1. And, I mean, it's going to be a monster game. If they could somehow, now, it's in Georgia because they lost 27-22 last year in Columbia and led a whole lot of that game and had a chance to win. If they could somehow figure out a way to beat Georgia, they'd get the advantage in the East. So they still have that shot. I guess North Carolina still has that shot. And as of right now, you got to say Louisville does with 1 loss, to be honest. in the ACC. But I think it's Florida State's to lose, so I really don't count those two all that much. But as of right now, I think those are the teams. So I'm really not going to count North Carolina and Louisville. But I think those are the teams that still have a shot at the college football playoff right now. I told you my 10, then I said Oregon State, Ole Miss, Utah, Missouri. That would be 14. Tennessee's loss, USC's loss, 2 losses, I think knocks them out right now with all the teams that are still up above them. I really don't see North Carolina or Louisville doing it either. I think LSU is out, even though they are ranked 15th. They have 2 losses. I just, with everything that's above them, I just don't see that happening. So I think that's pretty much the college football playoff picture right now, landscape. So that's what I'm going to go with, guys. All right. So it's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly from week 8. The good, I'm going to run through a few things. For me, Utah winning like they are without Cam Rising and without their tight end, their good tight end that's supposed to be back from injury, and still having 1 loss and still having that shot in the Pac-12 through week 8, I think is pretty amazing. So I'm going to list them. I'm also going to list Marvin Harrison Jr. Kid is amazing. I think he's going to have the best NFL career that there is. I'm still not sold on Ohio State or Penn State offensively. They both have good defenses, and, they both still have to play Michigan. It's the only 2 games that Michigan have to play that all year long that is really going to matter. We'll see. I don't know if their offense can hang with Michigan's offense. So either one of them, to be quite honest with you. Outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. yesterday, Ohio State's offense didn't look good outside of getting him the ball. I think they had like 120 yards passing outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. yesterday. And they just didn't look good outside of that. So I'm going to list Marvin Harrison Jr., Alabama, 6 wins in a row, bouncing back, coming from behind in 2 or 3 of these games. And they just keep chugging along, and they're right there. They're 5-0 in the SEC. They only have the 1 loss to Texas, and they're still right there. They're the only undefeated team in the West, SEC West. And, you have to put them in there, in my opinion. Florida State took care of business last night at home. I think they're right there as well. And so did Washington. Even though they played kind of bad, they took care of business at home and won. So that was kind of the theme, I thought, yesterday, because Oklahoma done the same thing. Texas done the same thing in a game that was on the road, but surviving and not playing great and surviving. Kind of having a letdown day. North Carolina did not survive with their letdown day. So I thought that was kind of the theme yesterday of the day. I'm trying to think if I am leaving out. Georgia had the day off yesterday, so they had a bye week. LSU's offense was definitely good yesterday, but they played Army. But they sure did look good yesterday doing that. James Madison getting in the top 25. I'll list them. That's definitely a good thing. The bad Tennessee second half. I'm gonna start with them guys. Like, you're up 20-7 on Bama at halftime. You've got to put some points on the board in the second half. I mean, if you're Tennessee and you're big bad wolf Tennessee, you've got to put some points on the board in the second half. And they just laid an egg, literally laid an egg, a goose egg, Zippo, zilch, nada. And that's definitely bad. USC's defense, I mean, what can you say? I mean, seriously. So I done a little research. Lincoln Riley is 0-3 in the playoffs when he's made the playoffs. He's 1-4 in bowl games. Okay? Lincoln Riley is. Lincoln Riley, in the 4 losses that he has in bowl games, has given up an average of 52 points a game in those games. 52 points in the 4 losses. That's the average. I mean, dude, there's more to football than just offense. You got to have some type of defense, and you have nothing. I mean, seriously. I may even take that one on over to the ugly because, I mean, it's getting ugly out there. But I definitely am going to start with those two. Penn State's offense is bad, guys. Yesterday was just bad. I mean, they literally had a couple of 2 or 3 field goals. I mean, they had nothing. They had a scoop and a score, and I'm not so sure they didn't have a safety to get the 12 and a field goal. I mean, Drew Allar, they got a 5-star quarterback, and they have what looks like nothing and nobody to go around him. South Carolina and Arkansas are both bad. They're both 2-6, I think. Arkansas, I know, is 2-6. South Carolina, they might be 2-5. They might have had a bye week. They're 2-5 or 2-6, one of them. They both look bad. Mississippi State looks bad in a win yesterday over Arkansas, 7-3. The SEC West. I mean, you got Alabama, LSU, who actually play 2 weeks after. Alabama's got a bye next week as well, and they play in 2 weeks when they come back. And you got Ole Miss. So, and they've Alabama 0 and Ole Miss and LSU have 1 loss. And that's your, one of those 3 teams is going to win. It's most likely going to be Bama or LSU, more than likely, whoever wins that game. I thought they were bad. The ugly. I'm going to be honest with you. The first thing I'm going to talk about with the ugly is Clemson Tigers. And it's not so much getting beat last night in overtime against Miami. During the week, last week, Dabo Swinney made a statement saying that maybe his team needed to lose some more games so the bandwagon fans would jump off. And then he goes into Miami, who has had some struggles. They've lost 2 in a row. lost one very ugly to Georgia Tech at the last minute. A bad Georgia Tech team, not a great Georgia Tech team. And Dabo takes his team in after making a statement like that and gets beat by Miami in Miami. Mario Cristobal's first in his second season, a season and 2/3, his very first home ACC win, by the way. He's never had one in the ACC at Miami. He does now. He beat Dabo Swinney after Dabo Swinney says that maybe he needs to have some more losses so the bandwagon fans can jump off. Well, congratulations, Dabo. Honestly, congratulations. You're accumulating losses. I mean, it's ugly. Like, what's going on out there is ugly. It really is. I don't know how else to explain it than that. They've got a good defense. They have very little offense. They hired Garrett Riley. I still say from the very first game, they are not utilizing, Dabo is not utilizing the hire of Garrett Riley. You look what he did last year at TCU. You look what they're doing at Clemson, and it's just not the same. He is an air raid. He orchestrates his offense from the air raid, and that's just not what's going on in Clemson. And I've got some people that are with the fanboys that will tell me different than that. But what I will say is this: is just look at the numbers and look what's going on out there. And I don't understand how they can be so terrible offensively. But that's not why I'm putting them on the ugly this week. I'm putting them on the ugly for Dabo Swinney and making as a head coach of the Clemson Tigers, who he has worked his own tail off to get to the top of the mountain and has been there, has been there for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, won 2 titles. And then he gets, and he's having a little bit of a struggle, ended last year with a struggle, and having a little bit of struggle this year. And before this game, he makes a statement again that maybe he should have a few more losses so all the bandwagon fans can jump off. Well, that's ugly as shit, and I'm just going to be here to tell you, Dabo, that's not a mentality. That's not a title contender mentality. That's not a championship ACC contender mentality. That's not, you've lost it. That is ugly as crap. And you're my number one ugly for this week. Absolutely. I don't think you can put it on anybody else. Congratulations. You're accumulating some losses. Now, with that said, I'm going to move on to some other uglies. Arkansas, ugly, man. I mean, they did fire their OC this afternoon, right before I went on, but Enos is gone. They got KJ Jefferson. Pittman has a quarterback, and he just hasn't been able to utilize him. I'll get to that in a minute. He just hasn't been able to utilize KJ Jefferson. It's really awful what's going on there. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen to Sam Pittman, but it's ugly. I mean, getting beat 7-3 is ugly. So they definitely are on my ugly list. 6 in a row losses. They are 2-6. They have now fired their OC, who they just hired in the offseason. Matter of fact, that he got turned down by 2 or 3 that he wanted to hire, and comes in and hires Enos and can't make 8 games. He makes 8 games. He's 2-6, 6 straight losses, and gets beat 7-3 in his 6th loss, Mississippi State. That's downright ugly. That's all I'm going to say about it. So, North Carolina yesterday getting beat by Virginia, who had 0 wins against FBS teams, and you're a top 10 team in the country. That was an ugly loss last night at home. Ugly. I mean, just ugly. I'm going to leave it at those. Those are going to be my 3 uglies for the week, for week 8. Ugly. I didn't have them. I didn't have Penn. I had Penn State on my bad. I had their offense on my bad, not the ugly. I think this is Jay, the Furman Joust, that's with me. So speaking of Furman, they won a big game yesterday, and number 3 in the FCS, and won a big game yesterday, and now have the upper hand to win the SoCon. We will see what happens, but they are aiming to be in the title hunt. So Jay is the Fanboys, with the Fanboys, part owner of the Fanboys, and he covers Furman, and the Furman Joust is here with us. But Jay, I had Penn State and their offense in my bad. So I appreciate you being on with me, but that's just so you know. All right. Lastly, for the weekend wrap-up show here at College SportsCast for Week 8, we're going to take a Week 9 look ahead. There are 2 games for next week that are ranked opponents, both being ranked. There are 2 games next week. I'm not going to go through all of these games by any means, but I will get to some. Tuesday night, if you're not doing anything else, Liberty and Western Kentucky at Western Kentucky should be a really good game. Liberty is undefeated, 7-0. Western's 4-3, but they played a lot tougher schedule, and they have a great offense. It should be an entertaining game to watch, just for giggles, just to have a little fun. Jay says they're playing ETSU, Eastern Tennessee State, next week, Furman. So, sorry, I was trying to get to his statements here. But, all right, so my look ahead, that's on Tuesday night this coming week. I think that would be a fun game to watch. And then Oklahoma travels to Kansas next week. Kansas is 5-2. It's at Kansas. I think that could be an entertaining game to keep your eye on. South Carolina and Texas A&M play. South Carolina is 2-5 and play 4-3 Texas A&M. It's at College Station. They simply cannot lose this game at College Station next week. Georgia and Florida play next week, which will be a big game in the SEC East. What's up, Hammonds? Georgia and Florida play next week in what will be a big game in the SEC East. It is in the Swamp. No, I'm going to take that back. I don't even know where I'm thinking. It's always played at Jacksonville. I looked at it because they're always the home team in the bottom, but So it's at Jacksonville, the cocktail party. So anyway, it's in Jacksonville. It is next week. It'll be a big game in the East, and we'll see what happens in this game. Florida's 5-2. They've only lost to Utah and Kentucky. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in that game. Oregon and Utah play next week. That is one of the ranked matchups. Oregon's 8 and Utah is 13. That is in Utah. That will not be an easy place to go in and win for Oregon. And Duke and Louisville play next week is the other ranked opponent for next week. Duke goes to Louisville. I don't know if Riley Leonard's going to play or not. I mean, he tried to play last night, played 3 quarters, had FSU down for 3 quarters in that game, looked really good. He gets re-injured on a sack, and the rest is history. So, we'll see what happens in that game. I'm trying to scroll through real quick and see if there's other, Tennessee and Kentucky play next week. It's a big game for me. I personally, it's an absolute big game for me, but it's also a pretty decent game in the SEC East. These are both 5-2 teams. The winner of this game will still be at least in the hunt, for a second or third place finish in the East, be right there. The loser, I'm not exactly sure where they go from here, to be honest. But it's a big game for me. Ohio State plays Wisconsin at Wisconsin. Colorado and UCLA play, but I don't think Colorado's got a shot in this game, to be honest with you. Cincinnati travels to Oklahoma State, which could be interesting in the Big 12. And then UNLV goes to Fresno State. And Fresno State's been ranked. They're 6-1. UNLV 6-1. I mentioned Barry Odom a while ago. I mentioned that he hired Bobby Petrino as the OC. He was there for like a month or 5 weeks or something, and then jumped ship in like January and went to Texas A&M. So Barry Odom is doing a great job in year 1 out there, and he gets a shot to go to Fresno State this coming week. Late. It's a late game Saturday night. I think that's going to be a good game to pay attention to next week. So with that said, that's my week 9 look ahead for college football. And I appreciate Hammonds and Jay being on with me. Jay says to give him Texas A&M. Hammond says, yo. And that's my look ahead for week 9. All right, guys. So my next show, going to have John Roberts on with me for the Big Fuss Show. Week 9, Big Fuss Show will be Tuesday night, October 24th at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can check us out and catch us there. And we'll have a little bit of fun, do some news and hot topics and some debates. We've already got some news that's hitting. I told you about Enos firing, and we've already got some news that's hitting here on Sunday. So it should be a big week with a lot of stuff going on. So we will have some fun with John Roberts on Tuesday night with our Big Fuss Show. And, man, I appreciate you guys being on with me and listening today and following along with the weekend wrap-up show. So y'all have a good one. We will see you on Tuesday.